Hello, everybody. Today I'm joined by Marco from Raybox Games, and he's going to be telling us all about an upcoming project. It's great to have you on the channel with us today, Marco.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jerry. I really appreciate
it. Before we get stuck into your current project, which seems to be all-consuming at the moment, could you tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into gaming, and sort of what's led you to this point?
Sure. Well, it's a long and interesting story, which I will keep brief. Back in 1990, I was playing Space Hulk. I was already kind of had a retail store, mail order store, and I wanted to start designing games. So basically in 92, I released the first game I designed, which was Legions of Steel, which was a big box game with 20 odd miniatures, tactical combat game. And it kind of was influenced by Space Hulk because I really loved that, genre and also how it played out on the tile. So from there, I continued to develop supplements and stuff for it, miniatures, hundreds of miniatures. I developed another game called Inferno Battles of the Abyss. It was kind of like Battletech in Hell, where you were a general commanding 60-foot tall demons in battle, epic skill. Like it was
nice.
Thematically really cool. Rules-wise, a little bit problematic. If I've ever brought it back, I would update it. And then in 90, there was a lot of other things that happened. I developed some other stuff. I worked with lots of different people. And then in 97, I decided to get out of the business for personal reasons. And then 25 years later, I started designing games again. So that's we're here now.
You got pulled back in.
Yeah. And then what we did is, there were still a lot of fans of Legions of Steel. So we decided to do some Kickstarters, 3 of them successful, around the miniatures for the game, and basically the classic miniatures. The miniatures, these ones that you're looking at are the new ones that we developed, which I made available in the final Kickstarter. But yeah, so those 3 Kickstarters, I did 4. One didn't fund, but the other 3 did. And the most recent one, which includes terrain and 3-dimensional terrain, that one funded as well, and we're just fulfilling that. And then in the interim, as I was having these Kickstarters, I was developing some games. One was Stalingrad, which was a World War II game. And then I thought, I feel like I wanted more of a story. So instead of having just the Germans versus Russia game, I decided to come up with the game concept of doing Escape From Stalingrad Z. So it's about Germans basically were trapped in Stalingrad in 1942, tried to, escape, and apparently nobody got out. So it's that epic story of almost like a movie. Just think of it as a movie. So I started going down that road, and I could see where people would have problems if kind of like the heroes of the game were Germans. And they weren't, they're Wehrmacht. I don't know if people, anyways. So I said, you know what? Also, why don't we add zombies?
Everything's always zombies. Better with zombies.
Yeah. So and it just feels like so it was about the Germans and the Russians, who are mortal enemies, coming together to fight this common cause. And I felt like not only is it's I think that's what we all aspire to, is to all get along and despite our differences, be friends or at least respect each other. So there's that little thing into it, and I was like, this is good. And it's instead of just making it a story, just a straight out story, like a narrative campaign, I decided to make it into kind of like a choose your own adventure, which we're all familiar with in the book series. But this is with miniatures. So I called it like Move Your Own Adventure. I don't know how cheesy that is yet. If I say it enough times.
I appreciated it massively. The minute I saw it on the website, it was like Move Your Own Adventure. I love it.
Yeah. So it's like, move your own adventure. So you're making choices, not just like, oh, my character's leveling up and now I'm better and I'm going to do the next scenario or the side scenario. This is really like different story arcs that span out. So maybe we'll talk a bit more about that as we get into it. But yeah, so then here we are, World War II, zombies, started working with some great artists, creating the art, the black and white art with Nat Jones, the color art with Riccardo Federici. And I got 3 or 4 different sculptors working on the project. And so here we are, and people love it. And it's not out yet. It's like it's got getting a lot of traction. So I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, it does. It seems to be one of those things that really has fired people's imagination. So When you're talking about it being like a choose your own adventure book or move your own adventure book, it really is exactly that. It's a game on a spiral bound book where everything you have is across a double page spread, and that's not all map. That is one half is the breakdown of the scenario and the rules for that and the storyline, and the other half is the tabletop map that you play on. Was it just the genesis of the idea that you wanted to tell a story, but you also wanted to be relatively self-contained that led you to deciding to go for this sort of book affair rather than having a more traditional, here's your map tiles or here's a box set with everything stuffed in it?
Yes, so that's exactly true. I was always designing box tile style games with geomorphic squares that fit together no matter which way you put them. And then when I was dreaming it up, that's how I always thought, and that's how many people think. They're either doing tabletop, so like no tiles, not just play on, it's a book and you play out of that, or with the rules for playing with terrains pieces, or it's the box set with the pieces in it. And I was thinking, I need to bring my game further to I want to make it more. But so those big box sets, they're like really expensive, like £100 or whatever, 90. And if the big guys are doing them for 90, if you're small independent publisher, usually your costs are higher. You might have to make it more. So it's like, well, that's pretty expensive. How do I make my game more, more available to people? More accessible. Exactly. Yeah. And so the thing is, and I was thinking, what are miniature gamers complaining about? It's like, takes too long to set up, takes too long to tear down, takes too long to play, and takes up too much area. I mean, there is room for that, of course, and people still love to do that. But that's the general complaint you get. So when you're in the mood and you got the time, you got the space, your buddies are all there, great. You set up the terrain, you're drinking cola and eating pizza, and it's great. But nowadays, especially with what's going on, it's become a lot less accessible. And I'm like, and those still are very common complaints. So I address them all with the game, which is like, let's play this in a small area. A book, well, that would be cool. And let's make it easy to set up. So it takes 1 minute to set the game up. 1 minute, not 3 minutes. 1 minute to set up the game, and it plays 20 to 40 minutes a scenario. You can, there's another 40 plus scenarios in the book. Like it's a big fat 100-page book. I mean, the scenario book, then there's a rule book separate. So that was the genesis of it. It almost came to me overnight, and I had a lot of good talks with friends and other gamer designers like Adam Dobbins in Australia. And, he had some other cool ideas. And between one thing and another, I just combined it, created this format, which I believe when you take a look at all the aspects of the format is an original way to play miniature games. There is similar stuff and it incorporates things from other games, of course. Even the book format is not new to how I'm doing it. A few other games do that. When you put everything together, I feel like it's a different gaming experience. You don't have to spend $1,000 on miniatures. You don't have to paint a 100-thing army. It's relatively contained. And then, of course, this is the first in a series of games. So if you love it and you want more, but you can get the next game, and you can bring your miniatures along. You don't have to buy all new miniatures. You can get the new thematic miniatures. But so overall, it was about those. Those are the kind of all the things that added to creating this final game, which is very accessible. And by the way, so the box comes with standees, and the miniatures are available separately. So you can choose what you want to buy. You're not forced to buy the miniatures, and it really allows it to be So that's that in a big nutshell. That's what it is.
Yeah, because I was going to say the initial sort of playtest I'd seen, you talk about there being pogs with it, which is probably familiar to people of a certain age and to people from America, but they're just the little cardboard discs,
round counters,
so you can see them from the top. And I really like that aspect of it. Although being something of a miniatures fanatic myself, I probably end up buying the miniatures, not painting the miniatures, and then playing with the pogs anyway. But that's just how I go. Can we talk briefly about the rule system that you've got behind it? Because I've seen there was some similarities to my mind at least, between that and Legions of Steel. Is there a core mechanic behind it that you like, that you enjoy, that you've built it around, or was this built from the ground up and just sort of shares similar strands of DNA, if you will?
Well, that's a good question. It absolutely is heavily influenced by the Legions of Steel system as far as the rule system. And the reason for that, well, first of all, Legions of Steel had sold thousands of copies and had many, many fans. So that system went through over a process of 5 or 6 years, was literally played tens of thousands of times, not like 100 times or 500 times. I mean, anyone who owned that game played it dozens of times. There was thousands of people who owned it. Some maybe never played it, but we're talking about tens of thousands. So it really formed a strong base. And many of the rules graduated from that into this system that we knew it already worked. In fact, the design process working with this updated version, 21st century version of the game, felt very liberating, and it allowed me to focus on the narrative aspects and the campaign aspects of the game, because that part just worked, and it worked for 30 years. So, so that felt, that's exactly where it came from. So anyone who plays Legions of Steel will find a very strong similarity. They basically already know 60% of the rules.
That's handy for people to pick up. But for people who haven't played the game before, you've done a sort of a 30-minute playthrough video where you explain the sort of mechanics behind it. We'll drop the link for that in down below for people to have a look at. But it's a very simple, intuitive system, especially when it comes to the AI for the zombies. So you're not having to overly concern yourself with, if X does Y, then Z does this. It's very, very simple, and gives that feel of the creeping undead sort of slowly shambling their way forward, but not in a way where they'll put themselves into harm. The fact that they'll go around inconvenient things like fire means that you can have a lot of tactical depth in the game as well with your maneuvering as to where they're going to go next, because you can plan your moves out in advance, which is really fun. This is one of the character sheets, and sort of every player will have these, and as they progress through the story, or every character will have one, as they progress, they can find equipment in certain scenarios and sort of build that up this way. So you get a very narrative feel and that sort of experience build up for a character. Does that mean that there's replayability then, or are you fixed to what character plays what scenario? Do you meet certain ones at certain points, or is it just a case of, I think the sniper would be fun, I'm going to take the sniper? Right.
So you have total control of the characters you choose and ones that you rescue or meet up during the gameplay. So there's 8 different characters to select from: Germans and Russians, partisans, and each one with their own kind of specialty and weapon that they like to use. And so you pick and choose which one you want to take to start with. Like you pick one. At this point in the game, they have no experience. They have no weapons. They have no gear. Basically, they have to fend for themselves. And the first scenario start bringing all that stuff to you, right?
The first scenario gives a very good idea of that just by the name of the scenario.
Yeah.
Wake up, it's time to die.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Wake up, time to die. Yes, and there's lots of replayability because you can, first of all, like as a move your own adventure, depending what path you take, there's complete paths you might not end up going down.
Right.
You can play again and choose to shake it up. Like, do you want to go to the airfield or do you want to go to the Volga? Are you willing to go into the sewers, or are you going to take the cheery, demolished buildings to your right? The sewers, I don't know. So these are choices. So you might not take the sewers the first time you go, but by damn, if you're going to do it the second time, you'll be like, I want to see what's in the sewers, right? So
it can't be any worse.
Yeah, it didn't get any worse. And believe me, the sewers are going to have like the each scenario. There's some straight up, find stuff, excuse me, kill stuff. But they'll start being scenarios that have other special rules that make each particular scenario different from the last, more challenging or just more interesting. And you suddenly, I can't use the same tactics I've been using because now there's an alpha zombie involved and everything moves 2 instead of 1. basically a leader zombie, making them all better. So, you want to take out the alpha zombie, but unfortunately with the rules, you can only attack the closest zombie because, let's face it, in real life, you're not worried about something 20 meters away. It's that zombie that's right in front of you you're going to take out. You're not going to be like, I'm going to select and fire at. Yeah, no. You're going to kill the one that's about to hit your face, right? So, yeah, so tons of the replayability because you can mix up your characters, play with different ones, choose different routes. And then, by the time you've done all that, you can just reset and do it again. Like, it's time has passed. Plus, we're going to have downloadable content that gives like additional scenarios, side scenarios, kind of like what if stuff, like stuff that you can add to your scenarios that'll make it different, like roll a chart, Yeah. Ooh, and there's one other thing that you haven't seen that's in the book, but I'm going to have a calendar in the rule book.
Right.
And you're going to mark your calendar off as you march through Stalingrad. And depending how fast it takes you to get to, like, there may be a snowfall. So if the snowfall's on day 6 and wherever your scenario is on day 6 is where you might have limited visibility, right? Or there might be a cold snap. Well, it was very cold anyways. A further cold. Anyway, so there's going to be other elements that are going to just create things. And the whole thing about, checking through your calendar and see where you're at, it's kind of an interesting thing. And then there'll be events that occur throughout it. And if you don't reach it in time, like it'll tell you like on the event or that a certain thing has occurred. And if you've already passed it, then it has, you kind of got to be there on the day or before or whatever. So there's another little kind of broadness, scope to it that will also change scenario to scenario.
It adds layers upon layers. I suppose that is one of the reasons why, I mean, when I first seen this, I was going, this is a fantastic little idea. It's so self-contained. It's beautifully compact and precise in what it wants to do. I think, I can see people getting this book. And then shortly after that, I think you announced that this was going to be the Paths Unknown system that then could branch. And you're going, oh, well, all of a sudden it opens up so many more avenues because you're not just going World War II. It's such a complete system in a book that you can jump to any. You could do a fantasy thing next. You could do sci-fi next. You could do
maybe I am
different historic places and they don't
cyberpunk. Like the way I like to look at them is it's like a movie in a book. Yeah. You can do like we can design a game where anyone could Die Hard with zombies. Tower, you got to escape this tower, and now you've got zombies to deal with too, right? And that kind of theme. You can pick, if you can think of the movie, I mean, this could be even more in depth. It doesn't have to be all about zombies and killing zombies, right? It could be, you could do a Blade Runner-esque type of thing where you're an investigator and you've got your team of, so it's more deductive and yes, there's some combat. If it's a movie, you can think in your Aliens, Predator, like you could do anything. It's really awesome. Sorry.
No. Feel free. It's great to see somebody excited for the project. I take it then because of that you don't find any particular constraints in having to keep yourself to that map size then, because I would feel like designing a scenario, you do the first couple and then you're going, oh, okay. But now the next one's going to be the same size of a map. I can vary the parts within it, but I can't make it bigger. Does it then become multiple scenarios, or did you find that having a limited space meant that you have to focus down on the scenarios to the quintessential core of it without putting a lot of extraneous faff, shall we say, around it just for the sake of it? You just go, no, I don't need to know that there's a burning tiger over there. It means nothing. It adds nothing to the scenario. This is what they're here for.
Yeah, so the latter. To me, I found it liberating. Art needs limitations. When you're creating something, if it's just like, oh, just make me whatever you want, like, I don't know where to start with that. Like give me some, but you have to use a pencil. Oh, okay, I'm going to create art with a pencil. And you can only use one color. You can only use 2 colors of pencil. Oh, that's going to change how I do it. So the limitation's good. Mm-hmm. And you're going to playing it. The idea is that you're absorbed into the game, that you're not going to be worried about whatever might be happening on the next page right now.
Yeah.
But when you get there, you'll be worrying about it because you don't know where it's going to go. That's the whole thing, is I don't know if I choose to go left or right, where it's going to take me. And that whole and we're going to introduce new characters. You get like new zombies, different types of zombies. Ones you won't even know. In the rules, I don't even put their special powers. So it's like, you don't know what this is going to do until you meet it. And that sort of thing. So so the limited size, I find, I had to play test to make sure it worked, and it did. It works well with 2 characters on the board. It gets a bit crowded after that. That's why your first 2 characters, you always select when you have more than 2 characters, which ones are fighting and which are in your rear guard, which are kind of like, which will help you like mitigate the amount of zombies that'll end up showing up.
And that's why it's a 1 to 3 player game then, because I've seen that. And
I'll tell you that actually before. Sorry, so it's 1 to 3 because you can play yourself. You can play, co-op, so you can kind of trade off characters. And the third player is a versus, so one person plays the zombie mask.
Right.
Yeah, it's not like you play. So it
doesn't include 1 to 3 player co-op, but when you bring the third player in, then you've got to deal with a living opponent. That's correct, and there's rules for that, there's things that make it more difficult, of course, for the players, because now you have a human deciding, and they have chits and stuff to decide, so they can start controlling the zombies better than the AI, because they can decide to move it differently. But they only have a certain amount of those chits, and they have to strategically play those, and there's other things like that. And then the humans have a little bit of extra skills, abilities to help mitigate, just to make it an even playing field. But that's what the 1 to 3 is about, yeah. And what were we talking about directly before that? I was rambling on about something. The limitations. The limitations, yes. Some of the scenarios will be a 2-page scenario, so it folds out, so you have a bigger scenario. All right, okay.
Okay. When this is the case, you'll refer to the instruction. The rule book will have a page that has the instructions for that particular scenario. So you can, some of them, like the big boss ones, there's several different ones along the way that open up into a full page. All 4 characters can come on board. Usually there's a vehicle involved, or a machine gun nest, like a strong point. So they do get, some will get bigger. And just really briefly, in the future, we're looking at there's a next book size up, which is basically double the size almost, 14 by 10 or 11. And then we'll be looking at those as potential avenues of future potential games. Might work with bigger maps, but they'll be a different, we're not limited to that size, but for now, that's what we're going with.
But it's good to have options for the future, because I can see it going down a storm. You've already announced Operation Series Z. So Stalingrad will be the first, I suppose, chapter, the first story in this ongoing novelization of the horrors of zombies during World War II. And you've given a hint that it's going to be Operation is it Risa?
So the next one is Escape from Project Risa, which is a real Nazi.
What's that? The Honeycomb Mountain? That was going to be Hitler's super bunker.
Yep, in the Owl Mountains. I was like, oh my God, they're in the Owl Mountains. How more perfect a name can you have for like a secret Nazi base? And there was like numerous secret Nazi bases under Project Risa. All the documentation's been lost. No one knows exactly what they were doing though. There were machine gun posts that were facing into the place. Like why would you do that? I mean, I don't know. Anyways, of course, as far as like, well, we've got zombies. Where would they be experimenting in zombies? Well, in secret Nazi underground bunkers. So that one's a story that takes place a year later. And, it's got a mixture. There'll be American, like the team is kind of like again, think of it like a movie. It's like a mixed bag of commandos put together for the best of each, right? Each country wants to be represented because, what's going on here. We don't want, the British and the Americans. I mean, they trust each other, but still, we want our own people to. So you got British, you got Americans, you got Nepalese, you have French, you have Russian. So there's going to be a nice mix, and of course, a mix of uniforms and weapons.
Guns of the Navarone-esque. Yeah, everybody gets together to do the mission.
It's going to be a while. That was big. So Escape from Stalingrad Z was more serious, and it's a grim. Yeah. And while Escape from Project Risa will also be grim, but it'll be a bit more Hollywood-esque, I would say.
Bit Hollywood pulp.
A little bit, yeah, but not cheesy. I don't want to be cheesy, like, but I still want to be like hardcore, like deathly. But yeah.
I, as I said, I wrote a little article about this a little while ago, and I love the idea that I could have a shelf on my bookshelf behind me that just over time becomes multiple volumes of this series, and you can play out a whole campaign or a storyline with it.
It would be so cool.
Literally on a tray while I'm sitting in bed, you know. I just think that for space, and space is at a premium these days with most people, but at the same time not losing any of the narrative story, I think is absolutely fantastic. Do you have an end goal in sight that you're planning towards, or is this just over the past few months it's just sort of blossomed and now it's, well, I can go anywhere?
Well, so specifically with World War II, I had without giving away anything past the second one, I have two more lined up that follow the European theater that I already have. I know what it's going to be. And then of course I was like, okay, well that's good. And then I was like, well, I might do more. I mean, I'm really digging this. There's so many ideas. And then of course people started asking for the Pacific, and I go, well, there's another 4 that we can do, like, for sure. And so like one idea I had for a Pacific campaign, when of course there's the island fighting and there's the tropics and there's so many places you can go. But I was to just do something different. I thought it'd be really cool to set one on a Japanese aircraft carrier.
Oh yes.
And so you're, instead of being on land, instead of being in a city, instead of being in a bunker, you're on a boat, and
deck by deck.
Aesthetically, it's going to be different. It's going to be, you're going to be, it'll be, I don't know exactly, but like some Marines will be on there, American Marines, and basically the Americans and the Japanese have to team up to, escape or, somehow, make it off the carrier. And it will basically be a derelict carrier that Marines go on board to kind of like check it out, like, we'll salvage it. Or find out if there's any information, and then from there it just gets into like basically a movie. It's like, what would happen? So
that does sound like the 80s.
So like I don't know where it's going to end. I don't know.
Well, I think we'll all look forward to seeing where it goes and accompanying you on the journey. So this is coming to Kickstarter for Escape to Stalingrad Z in April, but people can sign up now over on the website. If there's other places they're looking to get more information or to follow you, where should they go to? Well,
okay, so the website, of course, which you'll list at the bottom, www.rayboxgames.com, is where if you go on there, there's a big picture at the front. You just click on it, it'll take you to tons of information about the game. We've got a really active group on Facebook, Escape From Stalingrad Z Insiders. That's a great place because people are, aside from me posting, which I do daily, other fans who've already downloaded the free PDF of playing it and showing off stuff. One fan actually built a 3D terrain set of the actual maps. And then, primarily, sign up. If you want to sign up for the newsletter, then you'll get constant information. And the other place to sign up is right on Kickstarter, where you can be notified on launch.
Well, folks, if you've any questions about Paths Unknown or Escape from Stalingrad Z, drop them below. I'll pass them across to Marco and get you an answer. Marco, it has been a pleasure talking to you. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do this again. And good luck with the Kickstarter when it launches as well.
Oh, Jerry, thank you so much for having me. I'm super anxious. There's a lot of, but I'm very happy. I have to say, I love designing this stuff. I've never been happier in my design career than I am now. So I just can't wait to
passion projects are the best projects. And now you've gone through the whole maternity and you're just waiting for the birth to happen. So it's been terrific. Let us know what you think below, folks. We're going to move on. Bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.